We have one more week to go with this election season anyway, and the race is very, very tight. Recent CBS News polls find that Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are virtually tied nationally and in the key battleground states. So we've got a team of political pros to help us understand what the next week will hold. Leslie Sanchez is a Republican strategist. Terry Sullivan is a Republican strategist and managed Marco Rubio's 2016 presidential campaign. Spoiler alert, he did not win. And Joel Payne is a Democratic strategist and was the director of African-American paid media for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. She did not win either. Good morning. Okay, so Leslie, I want to start with you and the fallout from Sunday's MSG rally. These jokes that have offended a whole lot of people, particularly the Latino community, particularly Puerto Ricans within that Latino community. This is such a tight race. I mean, every individual vote could really make the difference. In our last hour, Lily Luciano, I actually want to play this sound real quick, talked to some Puerto Rican voters in Pennsylvania, and we were all struck by the end of the piece. Let's play it and then get your reaction.
Inside this local shop, we met business owner Arturo Mariscal. He voted for Trump twice, and he said when he heard about the comment, he was ready to change his vote to Harris until he learned it wasn't Trump himself who said it.
Sí, yo estaba pensando en volver a votar por él.
You're still thinking
Sí.
that you're going to vote for him?
The minute that he opened his mouth and said that, he should have came out and said, yo, stop this, stop it, we're not doing it.
If he really happened like that, he should have came right then and that's it. Because he was there, he was there, it was a rally. He should have came right out and say, no, that's not true.
Exactly.
But he didn't.
Leslie, every vote counts. Is that trouble for the Trump campaign?
I think every vote counts, and people are deciding where that's going to land. If you think about since 2020, a lot of these disaffected or kind of depressed, Democratic depressed voters have been moving into the Republican camp because of economic issues, and they were thinking they're going to vote for Trump this time around. And something like this is really a political firestorm where it changes their mind. It gives them pause. Where it's going to land in about a week, it's really hard to say, but I do believe it's going to recede back to focusing on the economy. While they may be frustrated, it wasn't the former president who made these comments. It was a comedian that never should have been there anyway.
No, I actually heard from friends of mine who are Puerto Rican in Pennsylvania, and they said what this did is it actually, for the first time, allowed them to debate with their family members on the other side of the aisle. But the conservative family members said, you know what, we're separating this from Trump, at least in this one family.
Very quickly, there's a very independent streak among these Puerto Rican voters in Pennsylvania, in those swing counties, and they're also very socially, culturally conservative Catholics. So those types of issues are going to trump any issue that they may see just in an immediate news flash.
The gentleman that you showed there, he seemed like he was choosing between Trump and Harris, or maybe Trump and not voting. There are a lot of voters who are choosing between the couch and Harris, and I think that population, what happened over the weekend at MSG, is most salient too, right? Are folks going to stay at home, or are they going to vote for Kamala Harris? Maybe in the Northeast, there are more of those voters that are available to Kamala Harris. Maybe if you go further south, Puerto Rican voters, there are less propensity maybe to be naturally a Democratic constituency. And I imagine that the Harris campaign is thinking about that, is they're thinking about how can you geo-target, put that message in front of those folks as they're making their decision.
Do you think they can do that?
I think that they can do that, and I think that they will do that, and I think that what you're hoping to do is get folks, again, who are naturally not going to go and vote, or who are maybe, I'm not sure, maybe if I have time to vote, maybe that is the thing that motivates them to go and have their voice heard.
I do think it's important to keep in mind, we saw that first gentleman mention it. I mean, look, this was a staffing screw-up. There's a lot of gaffes at Trump rallies that are usually tied to, the president or the former president himself. This was something where someone put a comedian on stage that shouldn't have been there, and at an absolute minimum should have vetted the jokes he was going to make, and should have known every word. That's just the Trump campaign has run a disciplined campaign this far, but that was amateur.
Throughout the MSG event, there were multiple racist remarks, sexist remarks.
The entire rally was a staffing screw-up, if that's the case, because the entire rally was full of people who were saying things like that, including Donald Trump, who routinely says things like that. So I take your point, but that is not a staffing.
Hold on, though. But what we're talking about here is this specific instance, and as it relates to Puerto Rican voters. And what I'm saying is they shouldn't have had a comedian at a political rally, number one. Number two, if they had a comedian, they should have known every joke they had, and they should have been the most boring jokes on the planet Earth. And they didn't. So this wasn't,
You guys have the worst roast comedian of all time running the top of your ticket, so.
Look, you mean the former and soon-to-be president?
Hold on, you said disciplined campaign. Is that how you view the Trump campaign?
Compared to the last two Trump campaigns, this is 10 times more disciplined.
Leslie, you're agreeing with him?
No, absolutely. Discipline on message, trying to keep the former president on message to keep him focused on the economy. Definitely.
The campaign is attempting to be disciplined. The candidate is not. You can't discipline the
right,
candidate.
but before you never had a campaign.
Yeah.
Before the campaign's approach was let Trump be Trump. And that has changed now. That has changed into, all right, let's try to really put some guardrails on him. It doesn't always work, but that is, that's
And the distinctly different is he's broadened that coalition. I mean, he's out there with reggaeton, artists trying to build in the Puerto Rican community, for example, in the suburbs. He's out there in the union halls. He's really broadening that coalition because he understands what I was saying before. There's so many Democrats, about 30% in the research I've done, that were frustrated with the Democratic Party, working class voters who wanted to find an alternative. And so that is the swing. That is where they are leaning into. And any of these things can disrupt that.
You also had Bad Bunny supporting Harris right after those remarks.
That's the death knell of that.
Let's move on to the gender gap, because you see, a majority of men supporting Trump, a majority of women supporting Harris. What does each side need to do to try to win over the other?
You bring that up. So the thing that I'm looking for as we hone in on Election Day, how big is the gender gap on both sides? I think what essentially Harris needs to do is win women by more than she loses men, right? Like if she loses men by 10, she needs to win women by 12. And I think Trump probably needs to do vice versa. I think that in many ways will be the story of this election. And I will tell you, Harris is well positioned to do that. I think that there might be a hidden vote of women, particularly maybe white college-age women, that are going to come out for Harris in a way that maybe the public polling is not capturing right now.
Yeah, but Harris was caught on a hot mic just yesterday in Michigan saying she needs to make up ground with men. Is there a path for her?
Well, she needs to mitigate her losses with men, right? She can't get trounced. She can't lose by 30, 35 points in some of these rural places. She has to keep that to 25 or 27 points. That's how she wins, is mitigating those losses and really accelerating turnout with her natural base, which is a lot of women voters.
All right. Three of my favorite people. I really appreciate it. I always get smarter when you're here. Leslie Sanchez, Terry Sullivan, Joel Payne, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And you can watch CBS News on election night 1 week from tonight from our headquarters here in New York City. And with our teams all across the country, you'll get real-time results, analysis, and exclusive polling. Coverage begins at 4 p.m. Eastern on our CBS News 24/7 streaming channel and 7 p.m. Eastern on CBS Television Network.